Okay, let's jump back to talking about cadences a little bit because we talked about cadences earlier in this class, but we really focused on the soprano and bass voice. But now we've got four voices to work with. So let's look at how that plays in. So first, let's start with a perfect authentic cadence. Now we remember what that is. That is a 5-1 cadence. So we would use this at the end of a phrase. If we're thinking of that tonic, dominant tonic phrasing, this would be at the end of that second tonic. So when we talk about a perfect authentic cadence, we can kind of split it in half. Let's think about those two words a little separately. Perfect is referring to the 5-1 progression. So a perfect cadence means 5-1. Authentic means that it's in both chords are in root position, and it also means the soprano is going from 2 to 1 or from 7 to 1. So let's just do that really quick. Okay, so we're in the key of D here. Let's do a 5, so that's going to be an A chord. Oops. I got to do my voices correctly. Like that. Back to voice 1. Over to voice 2. And A. So A, E, C. So I've doubled the A, that's okay. And we're in root position, A chord. Now let's resolve it to tonic. I did exactly what I wasn't supposed to do there, which is not pay attention to my voices. It's a really hard habit to get into. Okay, so what do we have here? In our 5 chord, we have the root. We're in root position, root's on the bottom, and we have the leading tone of the key in the top. So a C. We're in the key of D, so we have a C. So this is, the soprano is going to go from 7 to 1, right? And the bass note is going to go from A to D, root to root, in those 2 chords. So that means perfect authentic cadence. That bottom and the top, also allowed in a perfect authentic cadence is a 2 to 1, which would be if we had an E in the top here, resolving down to 1. That's a 2 to 1. Now that particular case doesn't work in this case because that gives me 2 E's and 2 A's. I left a note out of that chord. So I could make this work by kind of redoing everything. I could do that, but then this is a big leap. It's not great. Let's go back to how we had it. Okay, so if I respelled everything, I could make that 2 to 1 work, but 7 to 1 works also. So perfect authentic cadence. Now what's happening on the inner voices? The inner voices, we have a little more freedom on. Remember that the rule for a perfect authentic cadence says nothing about the inner voices. It only talks about the bass notes have to be in root position and the top has to be 7 to 1 or 2 to 1. The inner voices just have to be chord tones and not break any other rules. So we can't have any parallels between here. Now you might be spotting a parallel right here, but this is not a parallel 5th or octave. This is a parallel 6th, and that's okay. So that's allowed. This is a note staying the same, and this is a note moving up at a different interval than that. So no parallels there. So I just have to pay attention to all those other rules with this, but rules for the perfect authentic cadence, the inner voices just have to be good voice leading, chord tones, and work, not create any voice crossings or anything like that. So relatively easy on the inside voices.